Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. We have 25 present. Supervisor Krebs is not here. We'll begin with the affidavit of posting. This is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of the county clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI newspapers, Express News, the Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, and WTKM Radio. The above action is in conformity with the state of Wisconsin's open meeting law. We'll begin by considering the consent agenda. Motion, Mr. Mahalik, Mr. Bertram. Any questions, changes, comments? Seeing none. Vote all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Under personal appearances, letters, and other communications, we'll begin with the Baker Tilly 2018 audit report.
Good evening, all. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is John Knaple. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly, and you've hired our firm to conduct an external financial audit of the county's financial statements and operations. I believe you have received all of the reports that have been issued regarding our audit, the comprehensive annual financial report prepared by management, and which contains our opinion on your financial statements. Also a document entitled Communication to Those Charged with Governance and Management. That is basically our internal control report to you as the board. And then document the audit results. This is the document I'll run through quickly this evening, but I'll gladly answer any questions you have regarding the audit, what we do, or the reports that have been issued. So I'll just jump right into the presentation. The audit results, we'll talk about the status of our audit, financial results, go over some financial results, our required communications, and then some comments of value to the management and to the board. Page 1 of the handout contains the status of our audit. We have completed the audit. It was done in accordance with the various auditing standards that we have to follow, generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards that are applicable to financial audits as well. The opinion that we've issued on your financial statements is called an unmodified opinion, also referred to as a clean opinion. Means that your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting standards you have to follow. It's the highest level of assurance you can receive from an audit firm, and that's exactly what you and users of the financial statements want to hear from us. The county does submit its comprehensive annual financial report to the Government Finance Officers Association. They have a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting program that you've participated in. You've received this award for the past 16 years. There's no question in our minds you will continue to receive that with the current year's submission for 2018 as well. If you want some to dive into the comprehensive annual financial report, which is a lengthy document, I would refer you to what's called the management's discussion and analysis. That's prepared by management. It's a high-level summary of what happened during the year, the highlights, so to speak. It's on pages 17 through 29 of the CAFR. It doesn't contain all of the accounting jargon that you'll find in the body of the financial statements themselves. So a little bit easier read, and it's certainly a high-level summary that you can get a feel for what's happened during the year from a financial standpoint. As part of our audit, we also perform a compliance audit of your federal and state grant programs. That is in process. It has not been finalized yet. It's done in accordance with what's called the uniform guidance that's established by the federal government for federal funds, and the state single audit guidelines, which deals with the state programs that you're involved in. We do anticipate issuing an unmodified opinion on your compliance as well, relating to your federal and state programs once that document is issued in its final form. So overall, you know, all of our opinions are unmodified. They're the highest level you can receive from us. Going on to page 2, just again a very high-level summary of your general fund operations. That's your main operating fund of the county. I won't go through the individual numbers. I'll just point out, third line from the bottom, your revenues exceeded your expenditures for the year by $2.2 million. Your budget contemplated using $4.8 million, so you're $7 million better off compared to what your budget anticipated using. So favorable variances across the board on the revenue side and on the expenditure side as well. That left you with an ending fund balance carrying forward into 2019 here of $23.8 million. And on the following page, on page 3, there's a history of your general fund balance, both a bar graph and a table showing the actual amounts. And you'll see that in 2014, 5 years ago, you were at this level, $23.2 million. You used fund balance for a number of years, you dipped down, but you built it back up, and you're back at the $23.8 million level. Most of your fund balance is unassigned, $20 million at the end of the year. That means that it's unencumbered, available for use as the county board deems appropriate. There are some other components there assigned for or committed for specific purposes, or there's a legal restriction as to its use, that's restricted fund balance. And then what they call non-spendable fund balance, and that's really an asset that isn't convertible to cash within a short period of time. And the biggest chunk of that for the county is your delinquent property taxes that you've purchased from the other local entities, and you hopefully are going to collect those over a period of time. But that's the biggest chunk of what's considered non-spendable. The next page, page 4, you have some other governmental funds, 2 of which are individually shown in the basic financial statements, your County Roads and Bridges Fund and your Human Services Fund. Again, I won't go through the individual numbers, but you can see the activity there. Both the County Roads and Bridges Fund had an increase of $10 million. That's essentially the borrowing, the debt that you issued during 2018, just haven't spent that down yet. And then the Human Services Fund is carrying forward about $600,000 going forward. And then all the other little smaller funds that they're combined and put into a single column called non-major governmental funds. And you can see below the fund balance that's carried forward in each of those individual funds. The 2 largest ones being economic development and the sheriff's jail department and jail fund. On page 5, you also have what we call enterprise or business type activities. They are run similar to a for-profit entity, although you don't pay taxes or are really trying to generate profits. Again, won't go through the numbers, but the 5 that you have there are Highways, Samaritan Health Center, Fields of Washington County, Family Park Golf Course, and the Parks Fund is really, this is the first year of operation for that fund, so it doesn't have any particular or opening fund balance or net position that you're carrying into it. You'll see a very large transfer or contribution in that particular column, almost $5.8 million. That's all of the capital assets that are related to the Parks Department, Parks operation, that were previously considered general county assets. Now they're specific to this fund. Just like the Highway and Samaritan and Fields of Washington have their own assets that they manage, control, maintain, etc. Parks will now maintain their assets, and that was just the transfer in of those particular items. So Again, all of them have, I would say, very favorable financial position at the end of the year. You also have a number of internal service funds that are used for allocation of costs and so forth within the county to the various departments and funds, and that activity is in that last column there. On page 6, just a summary of your long-term debt and legal debt margin. Legally, under state statute, the county has the ability to borrow $765 million of general obligation debt. Not suggesting you do that, just that's what you have available to you. You have outstanding $17.5 million. And so your ability to borrow really is only $748 of new debt, but I know that that's not happening, so with your county. So, but it's typical of county. You're very typical in this, and the counties don't. Most counties don't carry a lot of debt. They have a large equalized value base, and so there's a very large debt limit that's available under state statutes. We'll get into the last couple sections here. Section 3, required communications. On page 7, this is just a bullet list of all of the things that are contained in this one document called Communication to Those Charged with Governance and Management. These are communications we, under our professional standards, must make to you as those charged with governance. The takeaway on this page and in this other document is that we did not have any disagreements with management. We did not have any problems conducting the audit. We did not identify any material adjustments to the financial statements. And unlike last year where we reported one material weakness in your internal controls, that was resolved during the year. We are not reporting any material weaknesses in internal controls this year. So that's the takeaway from this page and that other document, that really everything's kind of, it's running the way it should be as far as the accounting controls and so forth. And then the last section is a summary of recommendations that we've made to management, either recommendations about new accounting standards that are coming forward that you have to deal with, or other things relating, heads up on cyber security. It's a big topic. Sadly, I worked with one community this year that got hacked, held for ransom. Their general ledger was held for ransom, and they wound up having to pay over $100,000 just to get it unlocked. So it happens. It happens in this industry. So be aware of that. Fraud as well. Not that we found anything, but be aware that that is something that does happen in the governmental world. So probably the two things that are of utmost concern, and maybe not concern, but things to think about, is the new lease standard. There's a new standard that requires leases to be treated as really a capital lease, meaning you're acquiring an asset and you're incurring debt, and it's to be reported as that. Even if it's even under the old rules, you considered it an operating lease where you're leasing it for 3 years and it's gone. It's now a capital lease. Now, management, our recommendation is management needs to develop a policy so that they can implement this without undue burden in record keeping and your financial reporting regarding leases. But it's coming soon, and something to deal with. The other would be the fiduciary or trust funds. They've changed some of the rules relating to fiduciary activities. Could impact counties, particularly with funds held by the jail. Things of that, jail inmate accounts and court funds. So again, something that management needs to take a look at and develop an understanding and develop a policy on how they're addressing that. Those are my prepared comments for the evening. I gladly entertain any questions that the chair or the board has for me regarding the audit.
Supervisor Bossert.
Okay, you mentioned the cybersecurity, and it's ironic, a week or two ago, I was reading an article about a couple of communities in Florida that had the same situation happen where their IT system got hacked and their entire computer system was held ransom for significant amounts of money. Did you do any looking into our protocols and how safe we are in that regards? Or, yeah,
Yes,
okay.
as part of the audit, we bring in an IT specialist that looks at some of that. Now, it isn't a real deep dive into the processes or the controls, but it is somewhat of a high-level look at to see that, do you have these types of things in place, and are they appear to be functioning? And in your case, yes, they are. But it's always good to have a look at it and to refresh that oversight.
And how preventable are these? Is it something where you're trying to stay one step ahead of some pretty tech-savvy guys? Or is it basic protocols that are going to keep you safe from 99.9% of?
I'm probably out of my element in that
Okay.
regard. I'm not an IT specialist.
Yeah.
But I think if you have protocols in place and you follow them and they are reviewed by IT specialists, goes a long way to preventing these things from you probably can't prevent everything.
There's always a little bit of
There's always
risk with the tech-savvy people
get in.
we have out there, yeah. Yeah. And I know Josh is not here, but Matt, can that be something for you to touch base with Josh about and see if we need to do any checks just to make sure we have what we need in place to minimize our risk there?
Oh, yes, and we have an excellent new director who we feel very confident in. He's come from the private sector, very cognizant.
Your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, and very cognizant of this, but yes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Okay, moving on to Sewer PAC Commission Executive Director Kevin J. Muse, the annual update.
If I'm here, or should I?
Yeah.
Here's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops. See if I can. There we go. Is this loud enough? Good? Okay. All right. Thank you, Chairman, Supervisors, for having us today. As the Chairman said, my name is Kevin Muse. I'm Executive Director of the Regional Planning Commission staff. This is our annual report to you to summarize what we've been doing for you recently and the purposes of the Commission. I'll try to keep this relatively brief, and please let me know if you have any questions. As many of you know, if not all of you, the Regional Planning Commission serves as the official area-wide planning agency for the 7-county region, including, of course, Washington County, but also Ozaukee, Waukesha, Milwaukee, Walworth, Racine, and Kenosha counties. We were created to consider and address physical development problems and infrastructure problems that extend beyond municipal and county boundaries in the region. And we prepare region-wide area advisory long-range plans and also help the region fulfill federal requirements related to transportation and federal requirements related to the Clean Water Act. The commission consists of 21 members. There are 3 from each of the 7 counties. One of those members is appointed by the county board, by custom a county supervisor, in this case Supervisor Schleif, from Washington County. Also one appointed by the governor from a list provided by the county board. In this case, that individual is Mr. Dan Schmidt, and one appointed directly by the governor, who at this time is Mr. David Stroik. We also have a number of advisory committees that have expertise in the various areas and guide specific planning efforts either on a regional or local level, and those advisory committees directly provide advice to the commission for its consideration of our planning efforts. The commission exists to provide data collection, analysis, and dissemination across the region, provide the state mandated framework of long-range plans for things like land use, transportation, housing, water supply and quality, and natural areas. We also provide a center to coordinate planning activities across the region's communities and provide direct assistance to counties and local governments upon request. Part of that federal transportation role that I mentioned, we serve as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a federal designation, different from our designation as a regional planning commission. For the Milwaukee urbanized area, which in Washington County includes some areas in Germantown and Richfield, as well as West Bend urbanized area, which includes West Bend, Slinger, Hartford, and many of the towns adjacent to those cities and village. Fulfilling these federal planning requirements essentially keeps state, county, and local transportation projects eligible for federal transportation funds. Since 2010, over $99 million in federal highway administration and over $13 million in federal transit administration funds have been spent within Washington County on transportation projects. Just in the past year or so here, projects have been started that include the reconditioning of Highway 164, which I had to navigate around to get here from our office in Richfield. Reconstruction of the intersection of County Air Drive and Mequon Road, reconstruction of 18th Avenue from Vote to Decorah, and also the annual federal funding that assists with the funding for the county's commuter express service and the county and city shared ride taxi services in Washington County. This isn't true every year, but partially because of the substantial 164 project, nearly $20 million was either expended or initiated for expenditures in 2018 in federal funding. Our current region-wide effort is called the Regional Chloride Study. We're doing a region-wide study of chloride or salt in lakes, rivers, and streams across the region. We initiated this in 2017 with a detailed monitoring really getting underway last October, monitoring of 37 sites across the region, both lakes and streams. We're essentially trying to identify, and not only identify, but determine the contribution of different sources of increasing chloride in the waterways across the region. And this is important because actually a number of our lakes across the region are quickly reaching the level that the Environmental Protection Agency considers brackish. And so it actually will, our lake water, our freshwater lake water is starting to taste like salt water to the human tongue. And beyond tasting like salt water, soon after that you reach the point where it can endanger fish and wildlife and recreational opportunities on our lakes and rivers and streams in the region. So we're trying to determine how much of the increase in salt in the waterways across the region is from things like public road salting, private parking lot salting, water softeners, agricultural use, etc. Once we make this determination, we're also going to hopefully advance the information on state-of-the-art practices to maintain public safety and quality of life, but also look if there's an opportunity to reduce chloride or salt use in various areas. The nice benefit of this is reducing that chloride and salt use, in addition to being better for the quality of life of the region, should also save everybody a bit of money since rock salt and things like that are pretty expensive. So that should help reduce the strain on municipal budgets if we're able to identify alternatives. Recent transportation efforts that are specifically dedicated to our work in Washington County include assisting county highway department staff with the intersection safety study for county highways, assisting the Parks and Land Use Department with the county bicycle pedestrian plan. We did an analysis at the request of both Ozaukee County and Washington County to investigate merging the two counties' transit systems, which I understand that analysis is being taken a bit further with the hiring of a joint position between the two counties to fulfill the transit management role. We also assisted Washington County and the cities of Hartford and West Bend in fulfilling transit asset management requirements, new requirements coming from the Federal Transportation, actually from Congress in this case, and implemented by the Federal Transit Administration. So we tried to relieve that burden from the county staff, and also provided at the county's request existing and future traffic volumes for county highways that were used as part of the capital needs study. We also continue to work with the county's Transportation Coordination Committee focused on human services transportation in the county. In land use, we recently completed at least substantial work on the 10-year update to the county comprehensive plan, which the board acted on in April, and have also either completed or are nearing completion as part of that effort for a number of comprehensive plan updates for villages and towns that are listed on the screen here within the county as part of the multi-jurisdictional plan. We also completed a sewer service amendment for the village of Germantown, which enabled that substantial Briggs and Stratton facility that's currently under construction, as well as a number, anything else that's going to be associated in that area with that development. We assisted some local units of government with zoning ordinance related questions and also reviewed 2 subdivision plats for the village of Germantown. We're working with the county's land information office on planning and coordination for region-wide orthophotography flights for 2020, currently in our land use division. We've also completed a number of water resources efforts for the county within the past couple years, and also including reviewing public sewer service extension requests. This is part of that federal water planning role that I discussed. If we hadn't fulfilled this role, this information and this work would go through the State Department of Natural Resources. So we at least like to think that we provide more responsive service than they do to the counties in our region regarding this. So 12 public sanitary sewer service extensions, 10 private sanitary sewer service extensions, and also wetland delineations upon request across various communities within the county. We're currently working with the Ozaki Washington Land Trust to provide assistance on some creek restoration, and also underway is a lake management study for Silver Lake. We, over the course of 2018, received 6 requests from the Economic Development Washington County staff for data from a software that we host for the region. That software is used to attract businesses to the county by providing data on wages, industry clusters, and workforce availability and skills. We're also about to initiate updating the region's comprehensive economic development strategy, which keeps specific parts of the region, depending on income status and unemployment status, eligible for certain federal grants. And then finally here, we are assisting the county and have completed portions of a datum conversion project within our surveying department. We're converting legacy survey datums, both horizontal and vertical, to the latest federal datums, which will modernize all of those records throughout the county. Washington County took a unique approach to this by electing to actually occupy all of the public land survey corners in the county as part of the conversion. And we, over the past 3 years, nearly completed that, 98% completed as part of April 2019. The remaining corners will still occupy, our survey crews will occupy and observe once there's enough of solid ground from ice and yet no snow, because these are in areas that are marshy, and so we can't get to them without that specific weather circumstance occurring. We're also rapidly completing the vertical datum conversion project, similar to the horizontal conversion, without needing to occupy all those corners, and so that project was initiated this year and is expected to be completed in the next couple months. What's on the screen now is the representation from across the region, the commissioners that represent each county. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. 2 things. One is, you mentioned the Milwaukee urbanized district, the West Bend urbanized district. Since that actually was, I don't know if you say implemented or whatever, our taxi service that we provide in the city of Hartford has received less funding. And I wanted to know if SERPAC is doing anything about that, because of course Hartford extends even into Dodge County, which obviously isn't within the 7 county, but we're doing these service, but we're in an urbanized area surrounded by silos and cows.
Right.
And I wondered how that can be justified, and what SERPAC is doing to adjust that for those of us who don't really believe we're in this incredibly urbanized district for the area that we serve.
Yes, absolutely. So that came out of the 2010 census.
Right.
Yeah, you're very familiar. We spent quite a bit of effort, as well as you did and West Bend, on trying to persuade the Census Bureau not to make that designation. As a bit of background to everyone else, in order to be an urbanized area, you have to reach at least 50,000 in population. And the Census Bureau got a little creative with how they drew the boundaries in order to capture 50,000 people
Exactly.
among Hartford, Slinger, and West Bend. In particular, basically considering Big Cedar Lake to be an urbanized connector between Slinger and West Bend. So yeah, we filed plenty of complaints on that. The Census Bureau's response to that sort of thing is always, we're just drawing lines on a map. It's not our fault how other federal agencies use these lines. So I will say that one place that there could be exploration for better treatment in regards to this would actually be exploring a change in state statutes, because the way this descended down and affected the city of Hartford and the city of West Bend's taxi systems is that they moved from Tier C, as it's called in state statutes, to Tier B, in state statutes for transit funding. Tier B is the same tier Washington County's transit system is in. And the Tier B systems receive a slightly lower percentage than the Tier C systems, which are considered more rural. We tried to argue unsuccessfully to state staff that they shouldn't be using the Federal Census Bureau designations, and they should be making their own designations of what an urbanized area is. They did not agree with us at the time. If you'd like to make another push, we're happy to help
I'd be
you
very
in doing
interested in that. I'm
Yeah.
sure Russ would be very interested in that. I'm sure I can get Craig Sedonico, the mayor of West Bend, to get in on that, because we are being shortchanged. Obviously, this affects grant applications when we're looking to pay for taxis, and that, and we want to provide this service. Of course, this is for the lower income, this is for disabled, this is for veterans, a lot of the population that uses these services. And I would think with the current administration in Madison, that they would be very interested in trying to help out that. So we need some help here. Please, mark that down. Contact any one of the three of us. We'd be happy to sit down with you. I do have one other thing too, is as you mentioned the salt. I did a lot of reading when this came out, and that's the corn-derived product. I'm sure you've heard of some of the things that are there. We looked at them a little bit in the city of Hartford, and that's Ice Ban, Safe Walk, Natural Melt. These are things you can go on, surprise, surprise, on the website of the National Corn Growers Association, and it will give you everything you need. Yeah. But it does definitely drop that sodium chloride content, and there are studies that show that it can actually be up to 25% more effective than actual, road rock salt. And if that's something that we would be looking at, because I'm sure as more and more communities would move toward that, two things would happen. One is, of course, it helps out our corn growers, if that's something that's of interest to anybody. But the other thing, and I think really, you're going to stop a lot of what's ending up in our lakes. Of course, we do have Pike Lake right by Hartford. We're very sensitive to that. Yeah. We want to make sure that we're not turning brackish. I don't want alligators in my lake. So if I would be very interested in what Sewer PAC is doing to explore that, especially with the effectiveness, because if it is higher price, but you get 25% more effectiveness, there may be enough of a balance there that we could work on that. And if maybe there would be some help from the state to help counties and municipalities transition to something that's more environmentally friendly, if that's something. So please put that on your list.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Crocodiles are saltwater. Supervisor Galitz.
Thank you. Question for you. Do you know what % of federal taxes collected in the sewer pack counties come back to in benefits? Similar to Supervisor Mahalik's question is, the grant money's coming back. I mean, if we're talking what % roughly?
Sure. I do not know specific to our region. The state of, when it comes to transportation at least, which have a little more expertise in that specific area, every state in the country is a donor other than Texas. So we all get back more than we put in federal gas tax, and that's because they're transferring, essentially debt from China into the federal transportation funds. So they're spending more in federal transportation dollars than they're collecting in the federal gas tax right now. So everybody's donating to that. Other federal funds, I'd have to do a bit of research and get back to you on that. In particular, trying to isolate it down to the 7-county region, I'd have to work on that. So.
Just curious if you knew.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
EDWC, Executive Director Christian Teschlock with the annual update.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you all this evening. I understand in 15 minutes I get the hook, so onward ho to big topics that you all are undertaking tonight. So this is one of 2 times that we get in front of the board here. This is more of our economic development organizational annual report, but we also get to see the executive committee, and then the board is of course invited to our annual RLF portfolio review, which occurs roughly in November. So most of my comments today will be more focused on the economic development organizational aspects, and we focus on the portfolio later in the year. I'm seeing a few newer faces here, so a little bit by way of my background. I'm a certified economic developer with the International Economic Development Council and have been reaccredited now 3 times. I was just adding up some numbers and starting to feel a little bit old, but I'm approaching 25 years in the economic development business at as far-flung places as Slovakia, spent 3 years over there, and as far-flung places, which I don't advertise too much, as Illinois, as a place that I've done economic development. I survived and moved on. Wonder why? No, this has actually been my 10th year, or I'm working on my 10th year here in Washington County. So obviously really enjoy and feel very fortunate and privileged to be able to engage in economic growth here in Washington County. And I'm excited to be able to report that the state of economic growth in the county continues to be this year extremely strong. If you look at what constitutes our secret sauce, and that's really on this slide, it's our 5 values, and they've driven our growth and the work that we do in this county on your behalf since really the inception. And the holy grail goal that we have is not what we talk about or what the data shows, but what our customers are saying and when they vote with their feet. When we are able to work with a customer here in Washington County, and for, again, those that are maybe not familiar with what we do in our strategy, our focus is really different from many other economic development corporations in that we can engage attraction like the best of them, but we know that sometimes it's not the shiny, sparkliest star that you want to be bringing in. It's the stars that are right in your midst. And so over 99% of the companies that we work with are based here in Washington County, and so the work that we're doing is supporting many of your colleagues, friends, neighbors, and constituents, and that's something we're very proud of. And again, when we get a comment like the CFO of J.W. Speaker gave, we know we are moving in the right direction. This has been a bit of a transition year for EDWC from our team as we've moved to the next phase of our development and the way that we engage economic growth here in the county. You can see the members of the team. I've already introduced myself, but I'd like to take just a minute to allow a couple of new members of our team to introduce themselves, starting off with Sarah, our Executive Support Operations. Just a couple of quick minutes, if you wouldn't mind standing and then giving a little bit of your background.
Hello. I am Sarah Stern, and I came from the business sector. I was at Allen Edmonds before this. I've been an executive assistant, working with primarily C-level. I'm a Bender, so I'm from West Bend, and I jumped at the chance to be able to serve my community that I live in, that I've grown up in, and look forward to meeting more of you.
Thanks, Sarah. I told her we had 15 minutes, so these are brief introductions, but we did want you to get to know some of the newest members of the team.
Well, good evening, everyone. Some of the faces in this room are familiar to me, others are not. It's good to see some familiar faces again. I'm Dan Enholt. For the last 15-plus years, I worked with the UW colleges, UW Sheboygan, UW Waukesha, UW Washington County, and as of next Tuesday morning, I am with Economic Development Washington County, and I'm truly looking forward to being back in the economic development world. Prior to working in higher ed, I spent 22 years in the private sector, working primarily with Fortune 1000 firms, everything from finance to manufacturing, and in a couple of cases, homegrown Wisconsin companies like Kohl's. As a part of my role with UW colleges, I also was the executive director for the West Bend Economic Development Corp for about 7-8 years, and there's some folks in this room who served on that board as well. So I can't wait to work with Sarah, Christian, and the board, and get a chance to work with the county board again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it. We're excited to have both of them as a part of the team. This transition's been partially inspired by the earned revenue model that the county has helped to encourage some of their nonprofit partners to engage in, and part of that is engaging in increasing level of earned consulting activity. And so with both of them as a part of our team and Dan as our Senior Director of Consultative Services, we're continuing to make strong progress in that arena. Pat Tomey is not with us tonight. If you've met him before, you've met him as part of our RLF report, and he'll get a chance to meet up with you then as well. In terms of what we do, it's really the simplest way to think about it is in 3 buckets. Most of the competing, if you will, economic development organizations in other counties really engage principally in that first bucket, which is the project performance side of things. You've got a company with a specific growth project. They get involved, maybe put together a package of incentives, and then we move on. As you'll see, we do things a little bit different on that front, but that is an area and that represents a very high percentage of our business. Another segment is we're working with businesses proactively, not just when they have a direct specific development project, maybe they're engaging in new equipment acquisition or adding onto their building or doing a new facility, but also just to help them become more effective in the way that they are either operating or able to attract workforce. As we talk about in our mission is to fuel growth companies for the creation of quality jobs and economic prosperity countywide. That fuel is not just in the form of money, it's in the form of the talent that we have here in our midst in Washington County. And an example of that is, the mayor knows, we're working with HADC, the Hartford Area Development Corporation, and a consortium of Hartford manufacturers, as well as a few other companies outside of manufacturing, with a workforce attraction initiative in that area, and have been making some advancements and some engaging some strong tactics that we look forward to doing more with in the year to come. If you talk with some of our customers and the companies that we've worked with and ask them to describe what drives our success forward and their success forward here in Washington County, this is it in a nutshell. And this was actually developed by engaging several of our customers and saying what makes us different, what makes us unique, and how can we talk about EDWC to others. We don't want to be the best kept secret in the county. And in doing that, they often said, yeah, if you talk with other economic development groups, they can do some structuring, maybe they'll even do some analyzing, but you want to know what you guys do differently and what works here in Washington County differently. It's both bookends of this winning curve. You were able to work with us and in effect embedded yourself in our management team, our senior management team, in such a way we forgot you had other companies that you worked with. But you helped us uncover really what matters when it comes to our project, and then you just kept on focusing in on that and driving solutions that generated and leveraged what matters for our company. You structured, you did all that packaging, but the other side that makes you different is you're not done when you've put together that incentive package and we said yes. You help us execute, and you're there to execute. And I'd like to say it was somebody, it was myself who came up with this phrase, but somebody very talented did, and they basically said, you've figured out that instead of placing lots of small bets out in your economy, you're just going to focus right away on the winners and double up on the winners. And that includes businesses large and small, as you'll see in one of our slides here. But you've got a good sense of where growth is happening, and you hone in on that. Matter of fact, this slide really gets to that. Sewer PAC's presentation mentioned the Briggs project. This is 2018 activity at a glance. Obviously, that was a major project for which this county participated in. You were part of some of those closed session discussions that helped us put together the package that ultimately won that deal in collaboration with the Village of Germantown. And truly, when it comes to getting deals done, as our former governor has talked about, this was a great demonstration of making that happen. And obviously a very large global company. But then we also work with the smallest of the small. You've got a small company, it was actually an acquisition in Slinger, Fine Print Graphics, that has acquired Brandt Printing, and we helped them out with the loan program, engage in that acquisition, and help set them up for some success. As far as the loan portfolio goes, these are the stats as of 2018. We did have this year a little blip that we've successfully navigated. There was a first ever payment default, and we were able to manage through that situation and recover all of the county's funds, including penalty interest, as well as right now we're looking at recovering some of the associated penalties with the job situation that they, of course, are not going to be able to meet now that they are out of business. So through the structures that we do, we were able to recover that, as well as associated legal fees and expenses. So there was no net negative impact on the county or EDWC through that project. You can also see here we've been engaged in an increasing level of consulting with the private sector as well as the public sector. Mentioned already the HADC project, but there's been a couple of other companies in 2018 that we worked with too. With the transition in staff, we were operating at a much smaller staffing level for about half of 2018. By much smaller, I should say, here he was. So we were able to invest in that savings by adding to our balance sheet a little bit last year, which is going to allow us to make some increasing investments going forward, and you saw that in some of the other documents in this package. Many of you had commented and wondered why we didn't recalibrate our goals. In this chart you can see we recalibrated our goals for 2018. On the job side, we fell just a little bit short of what we had targeted to reach. That wasn't so much because of project activity. You saw on the previous slide we'd had a good number of project activity and a high win percentage, but it was more or less the number of jobs per project has gone down from some of the historically unprecedented levels that we were seeing. So maybe more of a correction back to normal. Also, we're seeing, obviously, effects of the tight labor market affecting. And so some of the investments that were made were very substantial. You can see we overperformed on the new investments. That what we mean by that are when somebody builds a new building or adds a piece of equipment, that's a new investment into our area economy. A new capital investment. That was, again, we exceeded our projections and our expectations on that. And it's a reflection of great investment in automation, which doesn't always translate into net new individuals when it comes to those investments. That said, those individuals that are with those companies are increasing and upskilling and having the opportunity to be more competitive in the workforce. And we see that with increasing payrolls amongst many of the companies that we're working with. So while the net new isn't going up, increasing payroll is, which is reflecting on an upskilling of the market. Lots of Washington County private sector companies have been working with a new model. There's a book traction if you're into reading what's happening in the business environment and what Washington County companies are leveraging to facilitate their growth. This is one that you want to put on your short list. We actually saw so much wonderful, really true results coming out of this approach to operating their business that we decided to adopt it for ourselves. And you can see the different components that are involved in that. And we included in your packet some inside ball on where we're taking our strategy and how we're aligning it under this model. I'll just underscore a couple of points. Obviously, there's not time to go through this, although certainly could have more in-depth conversation on what you see here. But on the vision side, that is really looking out past the next 12 months. Where are we headed? A couple of points that are worth drawing out. You'll note that our purpose, in a nutshell, is prosperous lives lines up very, very closely with your strategy here at the county. So significant alignment that is not accidental. Another important element to note here in the 2030 target, for the first time, we're starting to take a look at and put on our benchmarks cumulative fiscal impact. We now have the tools to actually analyze project by project what is the net impact for the county, for school districts, for our villages, our cities, and track that to see that the investments that you're making are actually generating a positive fiscal impact for local units of government. That tool was purchased in 2018. We're starting to leverage it at an increasing level here in 2019, and with the staff increases, we'll be able to start measuring this and tracking it. So look forward to that in some go-forward reporting. You can see we've set in a very aggressive target of $100 million in direct net public benefit over this, once we reach the 2030 target. In terms of our secret sauce, again, it really comes down to our ability to work with companies based on our local connections, that unparalleled expertise that we can bring to the table that I'm just thoroughly excited we've added to on our team here. And at the end of the day, while economic development has a lot of complexity, we're successful when we boil that down and generate simplicity and true opportunity out of this dynamic, disruptive environment that we're in. On the traction side of the ledger, that's what we're looking at within this 12 months of 2019 here. You'll note we're listing some issues. That's the language of this model. Really what they are opportunities for future goals and objectives for us as we go forward. And then we've got our one-year plan and what we're doing here and looking at in Q3. This is more of an internal document, so you'll see that there's internal things that we would measure, like our own revenue and those sorts of things, as opposed to the external economic development impacts that we shared with you earlier. So how's that for under 15 minutes? I definitely want to be able to give you some time for questions, however. Be happy to address any questions you have.
Supervisor Schleif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the bottom of the page before, you say there's a guarantee, get the deal done, or we will cover the cost to you. How does that work? Or do you take projects selectively so you know you won't fail?
No, we don't do that. Wish we could sometimes, but we don't. There are some really tough ones out there, and as you can see from our win rate, we don't win on all of them. However, why we're able to make that claim is candidly, I assume there are some viewers here, but candidly, we've been providing these services for no charge for years. And now we're charging for some of this work that we're doing that's very specific to direct company benefit. They're willing to pay for the value that's generated, which is supporting the work that we're doing in the new model that you've encouraged us to move towards. And when we aren't meeting expectation, we can use some of our private sector investors, our donors and contributors, to help support some of that work. We also know we can make that claim because we have a very high customer reputation. In other words, if they're not happy, we're not walking away until they are happy, ultimately. So on that front, if we win a deal, we've won it, and we've won it strong.
Thank you. And
You bet.
thank you for all you've done.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Supervisor Geltz.
Thank you. Being a realist, 10 years of a strong economy, there's many signs that we're in for a recession or correction, whatever you want to call it. So how does your organization prepare for that inevitable? Meaning changing your plan. I mean, you got your 3-year picture, which still could be good for 3 years, but it could topple off in 2021, 2022, who knows?
So a couple of observations. One, just looking, not that every past recession is going to be a forecast of what's to come and how we handle it, but in this last recession, we actually found that we were increasing our loan portfolio utilization. We were doing even more impactful work, in part because many of the Washington County companies that are leaders in their industry, and they were looking at the recession as an opportunity to gain market share. So a recession nationally or globally doesn't necessarily translate into economic malaise here in Washington County. That said, it changes some of the activities and the way that we focus. In a recession, some of the workforce pressures that we're experiencing right now are a little bit less. So there's more of an emphasis on leveraging the more available workforce in different ways. And so part of our assistance and our project work is in helping companies transition for that. So effectively, the company drives the work that we do, and if the market changes, the companies are adapting, and then we're adapting right with them.
Right, attracting the talent today so you can keep them for the next 5 or 10 years.
Exactly, positioning for that next recession. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Thanks, Christian, and thanks to your abilities to help economic growth really drive Washington County. I really appreciate the efforts of your team. Thank you much.
You're very welcome. It's a true privilege and actually a lot of fun too, so thank you.
Okay, moving on to consideration upon request reading of resolution ordinances. Before we go into the motion to reconsider, talk about a little bit about the ground rules. Motion to reconsider must be made by a supervisor who voted on the prevailing side. It requires a second. The second can come from any supervisor. The motion to reconsider may be debated, but only on the issue of reconsideration. A majority vote is required for passage. If passed, the resolution is immediately back before the board. If it comes back before the board, I'll immediately entertain a motion to postpone. As we had many questions about the speed as to which we were driving this and the information that was available, we're going to do a complete and thorough fiscal study and additional information, and there's an ad hoc committee that will be meeting directly after this meeting if it goes into back to be reconsidered. The motion to postpone will need to be seconded also. Time element is amendable. Debate is only permitted on the merits of postponement, and a majority vote is required for passage. So I will entertain a motion for 2019 Resolution 16, the resolution changing Washington County's form of government to create the Office of County Executive of Washington County for reconsideration. I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Jenkins, second by Supervisor Mary. Supervisor Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm not in accordance with this, I would assume Attorney Stern would tell me if my comments go off where they shouldn't go. And this is in regards to the letter from the 3 supervisors that went to our county board chair. After reading it several times, I did take issue with a sentence in the first paragraph that talks about there being no clarity for a direction that the majority of this governing body wants to go in. And I disagree with that because the clarity was at our last meeting when there was a tie vote. This is an item that can go either way. It was a tie vote. That means it lost. This item will more than likely come up in the future. According to Josh's statement to the county board, his annual report, he indicated that this body has grappled with changing the form of government 7 times since 2004. So this is not, it's here now. If it doesn't pass this time, I'm sure down the road it'll come up again. I also had a problem with the information that was being requested. One had to do with the fiscal impact. On the resolution itself, it indicates there is a fiscal note at the end of the resolution. Now, if more information is required, that may be the case, but it's there if you look in the resolution. Then it went into examples, including the county executive and county board staffing. And I had a problem with that because we are not micromanagers. If there is either a county exec or an administrator, we don't tell them what staff they will need for their office. That's not our role. We hold the purse strings, so whatever that person wants or doesn't want, as long as we control the purse strings, I don't see where that's relevant. And as far as the role of the county board chair, the executive committee, or the county attorney, you can look at the Wisconsin state statutes that outline the duties and responsibilities of all three of those offices, as well as the Washington County Code of Ordinances, which again outlines all the duties and responsibilities of those offices. They aren't going to change because we go to a county exec, unless we as the board decide to make some changes or the legislature decides to make some changes. And then in the last paragraph, it stated that it isn't good for department leadership to face an unknown. Well, they faced this unknown for years and years because this issue has come up so many times. So to me, that's not an argument that's going to sway me one way or the other. And basically, it was determined at our last meeting, being that there was a tie vote. I'm never against getting more information in order to make a good decision. But I don't believe that what is being asked for here will really be of help. With this committee, if it is appointed, I guess my question would be, what is the committee's charge? Is it just to gather this information? And if that's the only reason for its existence, can't that information be provided to the entire county board? Do we really need a committee to do it? I'm sure Mr. Hollenberger can do that for all of us if this motion to reconsider passes. And then the only other item that I had concerns about was in the chairman's response letter. In his last paragraph, he indicates that he's leaving the determination of the form of government in the hands of the ad hoc committee. I don't think your intent was for them to make the decision. It's for the whole county board to make the decision.
For the whole county board. What they'll do is they'll look at the information, and I would expect that most supervisors that have an interest in this would attend meetings to get that information. Also, it's all going to be, the informational packet's going to be available to everyone.
Yeah, and that was the other thing in your letter. You said Ethan should have that information prior to July 10th.
Yeah.
I have not seen anything. I don't know if anyone else has or if it's been provided.
It's online. There's some of it that's online.
Okay, because I was on about 11:20 this morning and there was nothing. I didn't see anything, so.
Yeah, there's a number of pages.
Clock.
Yeah, I don't know when it went in, but it's there now. Okay.
Well, I guess for these reasons, I'm not in favor of the motion to reconsider, and I will not be voting in favor of it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Okay, we'll vote on this electronically to have the motion reconsidered. We're ready? All right, motion passes 15-11. I'll entertain a motion to postpone. Supervisor Kelling, Supervisor Schleif. What's that?
A point of order, if you postpone, doesn't it have to be to a specific date?
Specific date will be August, meeting on August. August board meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion that,
Say what it is for again.
the motion is to postpone to August, board meeting. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, we'll vote electronically. You ready? Motion passes 21-5. Okay, 2018 Resolution 25, approve the transfer of property from Village of Ridgefield. Are you gonna handle that one? Ashley? You're gonna- No?
That would be Scott. Scott maybe, or Jamie?
Oh, Jamie? Okay.
I am available if there are any questions on this.
Seeing no question? Oh, sorry, motion. Motion by Supervisor Bishop, second by Supervisor Smisek. I'm getting it right. Supervisor Burton.
Yes, I did look at it all, and I'm trying to figure out the purpose of it and what's actually being transferred. Can that be pointed out somehow on the map?
Sure. I don't have the map in front of me in the packet, but if you look at the exhibit right behind the resolution, you see the 0.18 acres right next to, that's directly adjacent to Glacier Hills County Park. And it's a chunk of right of way, and then you see our trail through Glacier Hills kind of coming onto the property. So the Village of Richfield needs to take on land that meets certain environmental requirements because they owe the DNR some land. So this is a piece of property that when it became, they got approached, they quickly thought, oh, this would be a good one to take. It's pretty low maintenance. And so they went through the process of researching, deciding that it was a property the DNR would qualify to help them basically earn points back towards the land that they owe. And then they have since approached us, their commission directed them to approach us to see if we would then take it on and care for it, and the DNR would credit them. So this really is about who is best suited to actually own the land and the intergovernmental cooperation behind what makes sense for a taxpayer. I mean, it's a small portion of land. We don't anticipate any costs. It's next to our park. So we recommended it simply because we think it makes sense.
Okay, that didn't really answer my question, but you usually have a transfer of property because you need it for some purpose. What's the purpose of this?
To be a good neighbor.
To be a good neighbor for what in the future? I mean, you know.
Yeah, and Commissioner Schmidt made a point that there's another access point on this parcel. So it does provide the county with some additional flexibility in the future if they ever wanted to change the access along the road.
And this is which road?
167.
Doesn't tell me where it's located. Can you highlight that, Scott?
Yeah, Scott's gonna bring up that.
Sure. How do we connect there? Yeah, how do we get to there? The county's website? So we actually discovered this about 12 years ago. I did a survey of the Glacier Hills Park and found there's a little orphan parcel. When the orphanage gave us the money, they forgot to actually deed off this little triangular piece of land at the far north end. The Archdiocese of Milwaukee actually owned the little parcel of land. At that time, we kind of discussed it, was it worthwhile or not. It kind of gives us a little bit of an access point off to 167. So when this came back up recently, it just made sense to go ahead and make that acquisition without costing a lot of funds from the county.
So it's a transfer with no dollars associated?
Yes. Correct. There's no money being transferred.
Yeah.
And the additional access is for what purpose? Purpose to what land? To the
county
park?
The county park is to the south.
Okay.
Let me just pull this up.
And abuts this 0.18 acres?
Right.
Yes.
It's the second one.
Yeah, I got a clear on this side though. Hope this isn't eating into my 15 minutes. If we could maybe dim the lights so we can maybe see this a little bit better. This is our current county park access, this little roadway driveway that you see right in the middle of the screen that actually acts as kind of a back access, if you will, to the park. This is a little triangular piece of land that we're talking about. We got a little bit of our pathway kind of extends into that parcel of land right now. But if we ever want to make any improvements to this driveway, maybe sell off a portion of land or something like that to northern end, this then would allow us to maybe do that in the future or some other improvement that we can't foresee right now into the future, rather than having to go and talk to our neighbor right there. We get this piece of land, doesn't cost us anything, might be able to utilize that in the future for access point, a better access point.
That used to be the old road into the property.
Correct. Yeah, years ago. The road went all the way through. Correct, 100%. It's an active driveway, if you will, for parks use, for the most part. Yes. So that's the little triangular parcel. You can see part of it is actually encumbered by right-of-way. So even though it's 1/5 of an acre, a lot of it's right-of-way already. We're not talking a very large parcel of land here. It really helps clean up the tax rolls, too.
Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much. Just the comment that you made regarding the DNR being owed land, because I'm always sensitive to the vast studio audience and the audience on our cable access. People would go, why do we owe the DNR land? If you could just let us know, what that comment was referencing, so we have
So there is a letter from the Village of Richfield in the packet. We, the county, do not. Basically, and I don't know the specific details, I don't have the letter in front of me, but the Village of Richfield acquired property through grant stewardship funds that the DNR gave them. And they were supposed to, they were to keep it in an environmental state, but there was a portion of the property that was used, and it was unintentional, but used for another purpose. And so there's a certain amount of public land that they're trying to sort of make good on in terms of bringing that back onto the. Did that make sense?
Well, yeah, I'll have to ask the city of Richfield, or the Village of Richfield, how you unintentionally develop something, but okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, you can vote on this electronically. Everybody, please vote. Okay. Supervisor Brander. Okay. Motion passes 26-0. 2019 Resolution 26, County Aided Culvert Replacement, Town of Farmington. Motion by Supervisor Beloy, second by Supervisor Krebs. Thank you.
Yes, this actually came before the county board back in March of 2018. Town of Farmington is looking at replacing a large box culvert. That work is now complete. Unfortunately, when they did the first request, they based it on an engineering's estimate. The estimate was a little bit low, so now the town of Farmington is coming back and asking for additional funds to make that difference up right now. So that's kind of the 2-second synopsis of this. This county road and bridge aid fund is separate than the county's CRAB fund. This is a special tax that's associated with all the municipalities, all the townships, excuse me. And then what happens is if a town wants to actually replace a culvert larger than 4 foot in diameter or up to a bridge, they can apply for funding through this source. The Public Works Committee was very forward-thinking. They put additional funding into this fund for this year to make sure that something like this came up, that they could address it right now, so they can actually, if the board so much approves it tonight, we can go ahead and cut that check to the town of Farmington as soon as like 2 weeks from now of our financial process. You'll see some more coming down the road from other townships as well. You've seen some from various townships as well before you, so there's nothing really new or special here. They're just, unfortunately, was over budget. You can imagine every township wants to know at the beginning of the project, are they going to be getting funding? So it's very important for them to come at the beginning of the process. But obviously, they'll probably end up coming back at the end just because if they were off a little bit. You imagine you don't want to just write them a blank check either. So you want to rather have it come back twice and have them open up that blank check, too big of a check. So.
Supervisor Gals.
Thank you. The question I have, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to understand how the percent of funds is different. And the first issuance is approximately 50% of the project, and then this additional amount, it's 67% coming out of the aid request. So what determines the aid request?
It's still 50-50.
Really?
Yes.
I must have missed that then.
Yes, how it works is a 50% local match, 50% out of this Culver and Bridge Aid Fund.
Well, it must have been my
Hopefully I
math
did my math correctly and finance checked it, so we should be good.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on this electronically. Motion passes 26-0. 2019 Resolution 27, General Fund Transfer and Jurisdictional Transfer of County Trunk Highways DD, HH, to the Town of Farmington. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Bassel, Supervisor Sorcy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To continue on with our jurisdictional transfers, this one came about, we've been working with the Town of Farmington for about 6 months now, since the beginning of the year, to look at potential jurisdictional transfers up in the Town of Farmington. Specifically speaking, Highway DD, which is in the upper right-hand corner here, and County Highway HH. Attended several meetings with I'll get to this, this is actually a little blow-up in the area of the Town of Farmington to kind of get you a better feel for the roads that we're looking at right now. We looked at this as a Town of Farmington as one of those communities that has a bridge project coming up, potentially several, so knowing that they'd be potentially in need of some funding. We look at these roadways as low-volume county highways. If you look up Highway DD right in Boltonville, if you're familiar with Boltonville, a lot of people don't even know it's still a county highway, because if you drive there, not too many people are going to get off of 144, drive Little Pine Lane or Bolton Road, and then get back onto 144, except for those people that live pretty much right in that area. So we're looking at that roadway going, it makes complete sense to provide that to the Town of Farmington. If you're not familiar, the Town of Farmington Town Hall lies pretty much right between where those two actually connect up onto 144. So the plowing services won't be diminished too much from that aspect. But you can imagine from our aspect that if we're doing 144 for the state, now we got to double back to do DD. Like I said, there's several homes on that stretch of roadway, the fire department as well, if you're familiar with that area. Then we looked at Highway HH. We actually started the conversation with HH south of H, which is just a cul-de-sac now. The town actually came in and approached us and said, well, why don't we take the whole thing? Right, and as supervisor was at the meeting, like, okay, we can talk about that. It does blend in with our 2035 and 2050 jurisdictional plan to actually to have these roads turned over to the local township there. They're willing to take it. We did stipulate to the possibility of doing and we would agree to doing a chip seal on HH between H and 28 for the town as well as part of this process. HH was just paved recently, and DD was just chip sealed not too long ago as well. So the roads are in pretty good shape right now as they sit out there today. So we're looking for today is a fund transfer to actually make this happen so that we'd be able to transfer that road by the end of October of this year, so the next plowing season is actually be maintained by the town of Farmington. I know the supervisor was at most of the meetings. I know he even made one that I couldn't make. So I know that the town was very much in favor of that.
And it's very supported by the town. They do have some big projects coming up, and this money is very much needed for those projects. So they were in full support of it, and I'm in support of it also.
Supervisor Merton.
I'm looking at line 18. When did the Farmington town become a village?
Oh, did I write village? Is that in the resolution?
Right, and also on 25. Several places, 33.
The town of Farmington has not incorporated. I apologize if it did village. I know I did leave Kewaskum in there in one of the reports as well, and somehow the W relocation order made it into the packet too. I'm not sure if we got to amend that or how the clerk or attorney.
quite frankly, it's more of a typo probably than anything. I don't think it requires any formal action to amend, but
Where was that? In the resolution?
Yeah, resolution.
You need an amendment for it?
No. Thanks for the catch, though.
I apologize. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on this electronically. Resolution passes unanimously. 2019 ordinance 8 speed zones on county trunk highways, DD.
Introduce it.
Supervisor Bishop, Supervisor Gunnery.
Just clean up. The speed limits are for our county highways are in our county code. We need to remove those because now the town of Farmington will have to do that in their own code.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll vote on, Supervisor Krebs.
So if we're amending our ordinances now to remove it, until the town takes control and passes their own ordinances, are there no speed limits on that road?
I think it comes down to timing and when we actually officially, when those actually come out of our ordinance and when they put it in their ordinance. Obviously, we're not going to take the signs down anytime too soon. So we'll work with the town of Farmington as well as our county attorney when it officially comes off of our books. I know that they don't officially come off our books like tonight. I think it's after it gets posted and all that kind of stuff. So we'll work with our attorney and
So it's not
he maybe has a better answer.
It's not official when we vote right now.
Right, but if the signs go down, then it's 55 miles an hour on a county highway.
right, and the ordinance provides that the effective date will be when when there's an execution of the jurisdictional transfer agreement. So this kind of is held in abeyance till that happens.
Okay. I just want to know if I could drag race.
You got it.
Okay, we'll vote on this electronically. Pete? Thank you. Ordinance passes unanimously. 2019 ordinance 9, speed zones on county trunk highway. Okay. Oh, sorry, Supervisor Mahalik, Supervisor Bertram.
Thank you. This one, subject came for us as a request from the city of Hartford to reduce the speed limit on County Highway K. I apologize for the simplistic picture, but Highway 60 is the road that goes east-west up there, the larger dots. The intersection has got Quick Trip at the southwest quadrant, Cherry Auto at the southeast, McDonald's and Walgreens. So if you kind of get yourself orientated in the city of Hartford. County Highway K goes to the south. The town hall sits roughly around this 192 foot area where you see right there. The request was to reduce the speed limit down to 35 miles an hour, if my memory serves correctly, on that stretch of roadway. We did a speed study out there, which means we laid down the traffic tubes to see what the people were actually traveling in that area. Even though it's posted at 45, the 85% of the people were actually going less than 45 miles an hour in that area to the north. We're looking at dropping that speed limit. To the south, as the area, they're actually going just about 3 to 4 miles over the speed limit. You know, once you get down to the south, which is pretty common in Washington County. And so with people traveling about 39 miles an hour, you all know if you're at 35 mile an hour posting and you're going 39, our sheriff and most of the local municipalities are probably not going to be pulling you over. And so we've made sense that people were going slower than the posted speed limit. State regulations allow us then to drop that speed limit down to that lower posting. So we'll be looking at just south of Shower Drive. Right here, there's a rather large multifamily complex in that area. So just south there, I did have the opportunity to meet with one business owner on the east side of the roadway, the U-Haul in the garage. The name escapes me off the top of my head. Sibbles, thank you. They were more than in favor of that. The owners of Cherry Auto, which is right at the intersection, which the speed limit really won't affect them much at all because they are so close to this intersection that most people aren't going 45 miles an hour through the intersection. The speed studies we do also, state requires we got to be a certain feet away from the intersection, so we're not skewing the numbers to be close to, too close to the intersection, so we make sure we follow that as well. with that, I guess I open up to any questions that there might be.
Supervisor Mahalik.
Thank you very much. Just so you're aware, the Public Works, I think, passed this unanimously. Thank you, John, for your work on that. Also for Engineer Scott Schmidt for all of his work on this. I know there was quite a bit just for the speed limit change. Just so you're aware, Monroe Avenue, which goes by the high school, actually intersects from the west. So going east, it hits there. And then if you turn on Highway K, we've got high school students that are coming down there, some of them obviously with a rather quick, they're that 15% that aren't going 39 or 40 miles an hour. And they're coming right into an intersection, a lighted intersection on Highway K, and intersecting 60 going north. And then if you go straight, it turns into a different street name and the speed limit drops to 25 miles an hour. So it's a dramatic shift. And one of the things that precipitated this was an accident, somebody just not paying attention, going very fast and crashing through and hitting vehicles at Cherry Auto because of this, you know, going 45 miles an hour in a corner that clearly should have a slower speed limit coming in. And so because of that big safety reason, again, I wanted to thank Scott for helping us out on this and would urge its passage.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically. Hit the wrong button, Tim. There you go. There you go.
But I'm not gonna vote.
Ordinance passes 25-1. Next meeting date will be August 14th, 2019, 6 o'clock p.m. The ad hoc committee for the county executive discussion will be meeting across the hall in room 1020. You are all invited to attend. I would right now, right across the hall, right after the meeting. It's going to be this one. If you're going to miss any of them, this probably be the one to miss because it's just going to be organizational. But if you want to have any input and see how, if you have questions, and in particular too, everyone that has any questions that need to be addressed, please contact either Ethan or Attorney Brad Stern. We asked for questions last time. We didn't get any questions. So I'm sure there's some that are out there that you're thinking about. Make sure they're addressed so that so when it comes back to the board, all the questions you have are answered. Okay? Any concerns, any questions, please make them aware of it so that they can give you the answer, find it for you. Okay? Thank you. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you.